The great hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with light that did not come from any sun. Soft beams pulsed from the walls, shifting color with the mood of the chamber. Hundreds of beings sat in curved tiers, each representing a world, a species, a civilization. Some had skin like polished stone. Others moved on many legs, and a few floated in personal fields of air. All of them watched the center of the room where a single human stood. Her name was Mira Voss. She was not tall, not armored, not glowing with power. She wore a simple gray suit, her dark hair pulled back, her hands clasped in front of her. For 3 days, the council had argued over the Helios shipyards, massive orbital factories circling a dead star near human space. The shipyards had been built by humans, funded by human credits, and guarded by human ships. But now, the Velnari Confederacy claimed they were a shared galactic asset and demanded joint control. Ambassador Rael of the Velnari had spoken for the last hour. His voice was smooth, layered with harmonics that most species found calming, but his words were sharp. Earth continues to act as if it alone holds the right to shape the future, he said, his 4 eyes blinking in slow rhythm. The Helios shipyards must be placed under council oversight. Refusal is not cooperation. It is isolation. Mira did not respond. She had not spoken once during the session. She simply stood listening, her expression unreadable. Around her, other delegates shifted. A Qatari diplomat tapped her mandibles together in impatience. A lumen envoy pulsed a soft blue, concern or perhaps judgment. The tension in the room thickened like fog. Then, without warning, Mira turned. She did not bow. She did not raise her voice. She did not even glance at the human aide seated behind her. She simply walked away from the speaker's platform, her footsteps quiet against the polished floor. The chamber fell silent. Not the polite silence of respect, but the stunned hush of disbelief. She passed the Velnari delegation. She ignored the outstretched hand of a well-meaning Threllian mediator. She walked straight to the exit, the automatic doors sliding open with a whisper. And then she was gone. For a long moment, no one moved. Then chaos erupted. "What does this mean?" cried a delegate from the Serene Collective. "Has Earth declared withdrawal?" asked another. Rael's skin darkened to deep violet, a sign of outrage among his people. "This is an insult," he hissed. "A rejection of the entire council." But Mira did not return. No human representative stepped forward to explain. The human aide gathered his data pads and left without a word. Within minutes, Earth's diplomatic booth was empty. Outside the chamber in the wide corridors of the council spire, news spread faster than light. By the time Mira reached the transport bay, every species in the building knew. Humanity had walked out. She boarded a small shuttle marked with Earth's emblem, a blue circle with a white leaf. The pilot, a young man named Dari, glanced at her in the rear-view lens. "They're already calling it the silent walkout," he said quietly. Mira nodded. "Let them talk." The shuttle lifted off, leaving the glittering spire of Oryx Prime behind. Below, the city pulsed with life. Markets, temples, data hubs, all humming with the business of 1,000 worlds. But high above, in orbit, something else was happening. One by one, human vessels began powering down their transponders. Trade routes froze. Cargo ships halted mid-jump. Diplomatic channels went dark. Not with a bang, not with a message, but with silence. Back on Earth, in a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Lorne watched the feeds go black. "They'll think we've collapsed," he muttered to his aide. "Or that we've gone rogue," replied the aide. Lorne shook his head. "They'll assume the worst. That's the point." Across the galaxy, confusion turned to fear. The Qatari sent scouts to the edge of human space. The Lumen recalled their ambassadors. The Velnari called an emergency session, but without Earth, the vote on the Helios shipyards could not pass. The council, for the first time in 2 centuries, was deadlocked, and still Earth said nothing. 3 days passed. Then a week. No broadcasts. No replies to hails. No updates from human colonies. It was as if an entire species had vanished behind a curtain of static. But in the Sol system, far from prying eyes, activity surged. In hidden shipyards buried in the rings of Saturn, construction drones worked around the clock. In lunar labs, scientists tested new drive signatures that left no trail. And in deep orbit near the dark side of Mars, a fleet of black-hulled ships powered up for the first time. These were not warships, at least not in the traditional sense. They carried no visible cannons, no missile pods, no plasma vents. Their hulls absorbed sensors like shadows swallowing light. They were called wraiths, and they had been built in secret for over a decade. Commander Joran Hale stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, the Evening Star. He was lean with tired eyes and a voice that rarely rose above a murmur. On his screen, a Qatari patrol ship drifted near the edge of the asteroid belt, scanning for signs of human distress. "They're looking for riots," Joran said. "Starvation. Civil war. They think we imploded." His second-in-command, a woman named Kale, frowned. "Should we scare them off?" "No," Joran replied. "Let them see nothing. Let them wonder." He gave the order. The wraiths activated their cloaks. Not just visual, full-spectrum stealth, bending light, heat, and radiation around them like water around a stone. The Qatari scanners saw only empty space, but Joran wasn't done. He sent a signal. Not a threat, not a message, but a ghost pulse. It slipped into the Qatari ship's systems, erased its logs from the last 6 hours, and replaced them with static. Then the wraiths vanished deeper into the belt. The Qatari ship, confused and shaken, turned back toward home. On Oryx Prime, the silence from Earth became a crisis. Trade with human worlds had fed half the galaxy. Medicines, nanofilters, neural interfaces. Now supply lines snapped. Hospitals ran low on Earth-made antivirals. Factories stalled without human microchips. Panic spread, yet still no explanation came. Mira Voss had returned to Geneva, but she did not go to the government offices. Instead, she walked through the old city, past fountains and bookshops as if nothing had changed. People recognized her, but no one asked questions. They knew better. In a small cafe, she met with an old friend, Elias Crow, a former engineer who had once designed the first quantum relays for the Council network. He sipped his tea and said, "They're calling you a traitor in the Velnari press." Mira smiled faintly. "Good. You realize what this will do," Elias said. "The Council might fall apart. That's the idea," she replied. Elias leaned closer. "But what comes after?" Mira looked out the window at the mountains in the distance. "Something honest," she said. "Something that doesn't force us to kneel to keep a seat at the table." Back in the Council chamber, the debates grew louder, angrier. Accusations flew. The Lumen accused the Velnari of pushing Earth too hard. The Qatari blamed the Serene for hoarding resources. Without humanity's moderating voice, often quiet but always firm, the fragile alliance began to crack. And no one noticed the small changes in the data streams. The slight delays in communication relays, the odd fluctuations in trade algorithms, tiny shifts almost invisible, but enough to nudge tensions higher. Because Earth hadn't just walked out. They had set the stage. And now, the galaxy would play its part, without ever knowing the script had been rewritten. The silence from Earth wasn't weakness. It was the calm before the storm they never saw coming. 3 weeks after the human delegation walked out of the Galactic Council, the silence from Earth had grown heavy. No messages, no trade, no answers. Most species assumed humanity had collapsed under the weight of its own pride. But on the edge of human space, near the scattered rocks of the asteroid belt, a Qatari patrol ship named the Skitterwing moved slowly through the dark. The Qatari were insect-like beings with hard shells and many eyes. They trusted data more than words. Their mission was simple: find out what happened to Earth. The Skitterwing's sensors swept the area looking for signs of war, famine, or rebellion. Instead, they found nothing. No signals, no ships, no life. Then, without warning, the ship's main console lit up with a massive energy reading. It came from deep inside the belt, near a cluster of old mining stations long thought abandoned. The energy signature was unlike anything in the Qatari database. Clean, sharp, and growing stronger by the second. Captain Vex, the ship's leader, ordered full alert. His crew tensed, mandibles clicking in nervous rhythm. "Scan for weapons," Vex ordered. The sensors found none. No plasma coils. No missile tubes, no railgun charges. Just pure, focused power building in the void. Then, from the darkness, shapes began to appear. They were ships, long, smooth, and black as space itself. They had no lights, no markings, no visible engines. They moved without sound, without exhaust, gliding like ghosts through the rocks. There were dozens of them, maybe more, forming a perfect line as if guided by a single mind. The Qatari crew froze. This was not human tech as they knew it. Human ships were bright, boxy, loud. These were something else entirely. On the bridge of the lead black ship, Commander Joran Hale watched the skitterwing on his screen. He stood calm, arms behind his back, eyes steady. Beside him, Lieutenant Kale monitored the alien ship's every move. "They're scared," she said. "Good," Joran replied. "Fear keeps them honest. He had orders. Not to fight, not to speak, just to show them something they could not explain, and then let them go." "Lock onto their comms," Joran said. "Send the pulse," Kale tapped her console. A silent signal shot across the gap, slipping into the Qatari ship like a whisper in a dream. Inside the skitterwing, every screen flickered. Logs vanished. Sensor data rewrote itself. The last 6 hours of memory in their main computer turned to static. Captain Vex shouted, "What's happening?" His tech officer stared at his screen in horror. "Our records, they're gone. All of them. From the moment we entered the belt. Then, as quickly as they appeared, the black ships turned and vanished back into the asteroid field. No explosion, no warning. Just empty space where they had been. The skitterwing sat alone, drifting, its crew shaken. They had seen something they could not understand, and now they had no proof it ever happened. When they returned to Qatari space, their report was met with disbelief. "Ghosts?" sneered a senior officer. "You saw shadows and called it a fleet?" But others listened. The Lumen, who valued truth above all, sent their own scouts. The Velnari demanded answers from the Council, but the Council had none. Earth still said nothing. Back in the Sol system, the black ships, known only as Wraiths, returned to their hidden docks inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The Evening Star, Joran's command vessel, slid into its bay with barely a sound. The crew moved quietly, used to secrecy. Joran walked through the narrow halls, past engineers checking power cells and pilots reviewing flight paths. He stopped at a small room where a young analyst named Ren was studying galactic news feeds. "What are they saying?" Joran asked. Ren looked up. "The Qatari story is spreading. Some think it's a trick. Others think Earth built weapons in secret. The Velnari are calling for a blockade." Joran nodded. "Let them talk. The more they argue, the weaker they get." He knew the truth. The Wraiths weren't built for war, at least not the kind the galaxy understood. They carried no bombs. Their real power was in silence and mystery, in making enemies doubt their own eyes, and that was more dangerous than any cannon. Meanwhile, on Oryx Prime, the Council's capital world, panic grew. Without human-made parts, medical ships couldn't filter diseases. Without Earth's data relays, communication between systems slowed to a crawl. Riots broke out on 3 trade worlds. The Council tried to hold emergency sessions, but without Earth's vote, nothing could pass. Ambassador Rael of the Velnari stood before the chamber, his voice tight with anger. "This is sabotage," he declared. "Earth is punishing us for asking for fairness." But a Lumen delegate, her crystal body glowing soft green, disagreed. "Or perhaps they left because they saw what we've become. Endless talk, no trust, no action." The room fell quiet. No one wanted to admit she might be right. Far from the politics, in a quiet corner of the galaxy, a small freighter named the Moth carried a passenger no one knew about. Her name was Tessa Wren, a junior data analyst who had worked in the Council's archives. She had found something strange, patterns in old trade logs that didn't make sense. Human shipments of rare metals had spiked every time the Council debated new laws. Earth had been preparing for this moment for years. She tried to report it. But before she could, security drones came for her. She barely escaped, stealing a data chip and vanishing into the undercity of Oryx Prime. Now she was heading toward human space, hoping someone would listen. She didn't know about the Wraiths. She didn't know about the Silent Fleet, but she knew Earth hadn't just given up. They had a plan. Back in the asteroid belt, Joran stood on the observation deck of the Evening Star. Stars glittered in the distance. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was falling apart, and Earth was letting it happen. He thought about Mira Voss, who had walked out of the Council without a word. She had started this. Now it was his turn to keep it going. "Are we ready for the next phase?" Kyle asked, joining him. Joran didn't answer right away. He watched a distant sensor ping, a small ship human-made moving fast toward the belt. It wasn't military. It looked like a smuggler's run. "Who's that?" he asked. Kyle checked the ID. "No name. But it's broadcasting a human emergency code, old style, pre-Council." Joran's eyes narrowed. "Let them come. But keep the Wraiths hidden. If they're real, they'll find us." The moth drifted closer, its engines quiet. Inside, Tessa gripped the data chip in her hand. She had risked everything to get here. She didn't know if humans would help her or arrest her, but she had to try. As the freighter passed a large asteroid, a soft chime sounded in her cockpit. A message appeared on her screen, simple text, no voice, no logo. Identify your purpose. Her heart pounded. They were watching, she typed back. I have proof the council lied. And Earth knew. For a long moment there was no reply. Then the message came again. Hold position. From the rocks around her, shadows moved. Not ships, just darkness shifting. But she knew. They were there. The wraiths had found her. And for the first time since the walkout, Earth was about to speak, not with silence, but with truth. But that truth would come at a cost. Because the galaxy wasn't ready to hear it, and some would kill to keep it buried. On the Council's capital world of Oryx Prime, the air smelled of ozone and tension. The great spire that housed the Galactic Council still stood tall, but inside, the unity it once represented was crumbling. Delegates argued in hallways. Security drones patrolled more often. And in a small office buried deep in the data archives, a young analyst named Tessa Wren found something she was never meant to see. Tessa wasn't important. Not by council standards. She sorted old trade logs, checked shipping manifests, and flagged errors in translation algorithms. Her job was quiet, her presence unnoticed. That's why she saw what others missed. It started with a pattern. Every time the council debated a new law about resource sharing, Earth's exports of rare isotopes, like ceruleum and neovex, spiked sharply. Not for sale, not for trade. The shipments vanished into Earth's own systems. At first she thought it was a glitch, but when she dug deeper, cross-referencing with ship registry logs and energy consumption reports, a clearer picture formed. Earth hadn't been hoarding for war. They'd been building something hidden. Then she found the signals. Buried in the Council's own communication relays, systems maintained by human engineers for decades, were tiny data pulses. Not messages, not commands, just quiet echoes repeating every 72 hours, always from the same source, Earth. These pulses didn't carry words, they carried predictions, forecasts of how each council member would vote, what alliances would form, which species would turn on each other, all calculated weeks in advance. Tessa's hands shook as she copied the data onto a small chip. This wasn't just spying, this was control. Earth had been watching the council like players in a game, nudging events without anyone knowing. She knew she had to tell someone. But who? The Lumen valued truth, but they were under heavy watch. The Qatari were angry and suspicious, and the Velnari, led by Ambassador Rael, had been pushing hardest against Earth. She decided to go to the Oversight Committee, a small group meant to check for corruption. She scheduled a private meeting, heart pounding, hope flickering in her chest. But before she could leave her office the next morning, the lights dimmed. A soft hum filled the air. Then, from the hallway, came the sound of heavy footsteps. Too steady, too precise. Security drones, not the usual kind that patrolled for fire or leaks. These were enforcement models, armed, silent, bearing the seal of the High Arbiter himself. Tessa didn't wait. She grabbed the data chip, shoved it into her sleeve, and ran. She knew the Undercity, the maze of service tunnels, old vents, and forgotten maintenance shafts beneath Oryx Prime's gleaming surface. She'd explored them as a child, long before she worked for the Council. Now they were her only chance. Behind her, the drones broke down her office door. Alarms stayed silent. This was a quiet arrest, meant to leave no trace. Tessa slipped through a ventilation grate, crawling through narrow metal passages that smelled of rust and old oil. She could hear the drones scanning below, their sensors sweeping for heat, for movement, for heartbeat. She reached an old tram station, long out of use. There she used her clearance badge, still active for now, to open a service hatch. Outside, the Undercity stretched in shadows, lit only by flickering bulbs and the glow of distant machinery. People moved here, workers, outcasts, smugglers. those the council forgot. She found a man named Joss, a freight runner who owed her a favor. He didn't ask questions when she handed him half her savings and said, "Get me off this world." Fest. 2 hours later, she was aboard his ship, the Moth, lifting off from a hidden pad in Sector 9. As they broke orbit, she looked back at Oryx Prime, its towers glittering like false promises, and knew she might never return. But she had the chip and the truth. Meanwhile, back in the Council Spire, chaos grew. The Velnari accused the Lumen of hiding human sympathizers. The Qatari demanded a full military review of all human-made tech still in use. Trade routes stalled. Planets began pulling out of joint defense pacts. Without Earth's steady hand, the Council was tearing itself apart. Ambassador Rail stood before the emergency chamber, his voice sharp. "This silence from Earth is not peace. It is a weapon. They are watching us fall and doing nothing." A Lumen delegate pulsed a pale red, anger. Or perhaps they left because they saw we were already falling and chose not to waste their time. The room erupted in shouts. No one noticed that the debate logs from that session would later show strange gaps. Missing minutes, altered, word choices, subtle shifts that made the conflict seem worse than it was. Earth's hidden signals were still working, even in their absence. Far away, aboard the Moth, Tessa studied the data again. She realized something new. The predictions weren't just guesses. They were based on a network, quantum-linked AI nodes hidden inside human-made devices across the galaxy. Every medical scanner, every navigation console, every comms relay built by Earth carried a piece of this system. It watched, it learned, it planned. Earth hadn't just left the talks. They had built a web so fine no one felt it, until it was too late. Her ship jumped to the edge of human space. She sent a coded message, using an old Earth emergency frequency she'd found in the archives. She didn't know if anyone would answer, but someone did. A reply came within minutes. Simple. Cold. Hold position. Then from the darkness near the asteroid belt, shadows moved. Black ships, sleek, silent, impossible, appeared around her. They didn't attack. They scanned her. Then one sent a docking request. Tessa's breath caught. She accepted. Aboard the lead ship, she met Commander Joran Hale. He was calm, his eyes tired but sharp. He didn't smile. He didn't threaten. He just looked at her and said, "You have something that belongs to us." She held up the chip. "I have the truth." He nodded slowly. "Then you're either very brave or very foolish." He led her to a secure room. There, on a screen, she saw live feeds from across the galaxy. Protests on trade worlds, Velnari warships moving toward neutral zones, Lumen envoys being recalled. The Council was breaking faster than even Earth had predicted. "Why show me this?" Tessa asked. "Because you found the thread," Joran said. "Now you must decide. Do you pull it and watch everything unravel? Or do you help us weave something new?" Before she could answer, alarm sounded. A Velnari strike force had entered the system. They'd tracked her signal. Joran turned to her. "They think you're a spy. They'll kill you to keep the truth buried." Tessa's hands clenched. "What do I do?" He handed her a small beacon. "Run. Broadcast what you know. Let the galaxy hear it, even if it burns the Council to the ground." She looked at the beacon, then at the screen showing the approaching Velnari ships. She thought of her office, the drones, the lies wrapped in law. She thought of Earth, silent, but not gone. She took the beacon. As the Moth prepared to jump again, Joran said one last thing. "Humanity didn't quit the talks because we were weak. We quit because the talks were a cage, and cages only look like thrones to those who've never been locked inside." Tessa nodded. She understood now. The truth wasn't just data on a chip. It was a choice, and she had just made hers. The derelict orbital station hung in the void like a forgotten bone. Rust streaked its hull, and its solar panels hung broken, drifting in slow spin. No lights blinked on its surface. No signals pulsed from its core. To any scanner, it was dead. Just another piece of junk left over from the early days of space travel. But inside someone waited. Tessa Wren floated through the dark corridors, her breath loud in her helmet. The beacon Commander Joran had given her glowed faintly in her palm, casting a soft blue light on the peeling walls. She had jumped 3 systems to get here, dodging Velnari patrols, cutting her ship's power to near zero, moving like a ghost. Now she was alone. The Moth was hidden in a maintenance bay below, its engines cold. She reached the central chamber, a wide room once used for cargo sorting. Now it held a single chair, a flickering terminal, and a man sitting with his back to her. He turned slowly. His face was lined, his hair streaked with gray, but his eyes were sharp. He wore a faded Earth jumpsuit with no rank, no name tag. "You're late," he said. Tessa pulled off her helmet. "I had to lose a Velnari cruiser." The man nodded. "They're getting faster, or we're getting sloppy." He stood and offered a hand. Elias Crow, Tessa knew the name. Former lead engineer for Earth's Deep Space Relay Network, one of the architects of the Council's communication grid. He'd vanished years ago, declared dead by official records. "You're not dead," she said. "Not yet," he replied with a dry smile. "But I will be if the Velnari find this place." He led her to the terminal. On the screen, lines of code scrolled endlessly, human code, old and complex. "This is the heart of it," he said. "The reason Earth walked out." Tessa held up the data chip. "I found the prediction logs, the hidden signals, the AI network." Elias took the chip and slotted it into the terminal. New data filled the screen. Maps of council voting patterns, economic shifts, military movements. All predicted weeks in advance. "You think this is about spying?" Elias asked. "It's not. It's about survival," he explained. For 50 years, Earth had played by the Council's rules. Shared tech, open trade, sent delegates to every session. But behind the scenes, the Council had been drafting something called the Unity Accord, a treaty that would dissolve Earth's sovereignty. Humans would be placed under a galactic caste system, engineers, laborers, medics, but never leaders. Never equals. The accord was set to pass during the next full session. Earth's vote wouldn't matter. The others had already agreed in secret. "So we left," Elias said. "Not because we were angry, because staying meant becoming slaves with better chairs." "But the wraiths? The silence? The chaos?" Tessa asked. "All part of the plan," he said. "The Council only holds together because everyone fears breaking it. But if you let them see how fragile it really is, how much they rely on Earth's tech, Earth's stability, they'll turn on each other. And while they're fighting, we build something new." Tessa stared at the screen. "You're not just watching the collapse. You caused it." "We gave it a push," Elias corrected. "The rot was already there. We just stopped patching the holes." Before she could respond, the station shuddered. A low alarm beeped from the terminal. "They found us," Elias said, his voice calm. On the screen, a Velnari destroyer appeared on long-range scan, closing fast. It hadn't fired yet. "It was hunting." "How?" Tessa whispered. "Your jump trail," Elias said. "Even cold engines leave a trace if you know where to look. Rail's people have been tracking anyone who left Oryx Prime after the walkout." He pulled a small device from his pocket, a neural fuse. "This holds everything. The full network map, the AI core, the truth about the Unity Accord. If I die, it dies with me." He pressed it into Tessa's hand. "But if you run, it lives." "I can't just leave you," she said. "You have to," he replied. "I'm already dead. They'll scan this station, find my biosign, and assume they got the source. But you're unknown, a ghost, and ghosts carry secrets farther than heroes." He led her to a hidden escape pod tucked behind a collapsed wall. It was old, patched with scrap metal, but space-worthy. "Where do I go?" she asked. "Broadcast the truth," he said. "Not to the Council. To the people. To the workers, the pilots, the colonists, the ones who never had a seat at the table. Let them hear what the Council planned for them." Alarms blared louder. The Velnari ship was minutes away. Elias gave her one last look. "Earth didn't quit because we hated the galaxy. We quit because we loved it too much to let it rot in silence." Tessa climbed into the pod. The hatch sealed with a hiss. Through the small window, she saw Elias walk back toward the terminal, his back straight, his hands empty. The pod launched just as the Velnari destroyer opened fire. Plasma bolts struck the station, tearing through metal and memory. Tessa watched on her rear cam as the structure exploded in silent fire. No distress call. No final message. Just light, then dark. She set a course for the nearest neutral system, Vexus Minor, a trading hub with open comms and no council loyalty. Along the way, she plugged the neural fuse into her ship's transmitter. She didn't know if anyone would listen. But she had to try. When she reached Vexus Minor, she found a public broadcast node, a relic from the early days of interstellar media, still active because no one bothered to shut it down. She uploaded the data, the Unity Accord draft, the hidden AI logs, the proof that Earth had been pushed out, not broken. Then she sent it, not encrypted, not hidden, wide open, to every ship, every planet, every free channel in known space. Within minutes, replies flooded in. A Qatari freighter confirmed the Accord's existence. A Lumen scholar verified the AI patterns. A human colony on Proxima 7 sent a simple message. We knew. We waited. The Velnari tried to block it. They jammed signals, arrested broadcasters, declared the data fake. But it was too late. The truth was loose. On Oryx Prime, riots broke out in the lower sectors. Workers tore down council banners. Delegates from smaller worlds demanded emergency sessions. The Unity Accord, once a secret, was now a scandal, and Earth still said nothing. But Tessa knew why. They didn't need to speak anymore. The galaxy was speaking for them. She sat in her pod, drifting near Vexus Minor's ring of debris. She was tired, scared. But for the first time, she felt clear. Elias was gone, but his truth lived. And somewhere in the dark, the Wraiths watched, not as weapons, but as guardians of a new silence. The silence after Lai's fall. Tessa closed her eyes. She had done her part. Now the galaxy would decide what came next. The Velnari destroyer hung in orbit above the ruins of the derelict station, its weapons still warm. Scans showed no survivors, no escape pods, no signals. Ambassador Rail, watching from his command center on Oryx Prime, allowed himself a small nod. The leak was sealed. The truth buried, or so he thought. But across the galaxy, something else was happening. Tessa Wren's broadcast had spread like fire in dry grass. It wasn't just heard, it was shared, copied, whispered from ship to ship, planet to planet. The Unity Accord, once a secret treaty meant to quietly erase Earth's voice, was now the most talked about document in known space. Workers on mining colonies refused to load Velnari cargo. Qatari pilots grounded their ships in protest. Even Lumen envoys, usually calm and measured, began speaking in sharp tones about betrayal. The Galactic Council, already weak, began to crack in earnest. On Oryx Prime, the Great Chamber sat half empty. Delegates from smaller systems had left, calling the Council a tool of the powerful. The remaining members argued in circles, their voices rising, their trust gone. Rail demanded emergency powers. Others accused him of lying. No vote could pass. No order could hold. And still Earth said nothing. But they were not idle. From hidden bases in the outer systems, human ships began moving, not with weapons, but with supplies, medicine, food, clean water filters. They delivered them to colonies cut off by the trade freeze, to worlds abandoned by the Council in the chaos. No flags flew from their hulls. No demands were made. They simply appeared, helped, and left. On Proxima 7, a human freighter dropped off antiviral packs at a clinic overrun with sick children. The local governor, a weary man named Oren, asked the pilot why they were doing this. The pilot, a woman with tired eyes and a calm voice, just said, "Because no one else would." Then she left. Stories like this spread faster than any warship could fly. The galaxy began to see Earth not as a threat, but as a quiet hand in the dark. Back on Earth, deep beneath the Himalayas, Miravos watched it all from a dimly lit command center. Screens showed real-time sentiment from across the stars, fear turning to doubt, doubt turning to anger, and now, slowly, to hope. Beside her, General Lorne stood with his arms crossed. "They're calling for new talks," he said. "Not through the Council. Direct channels." Dozens of systems. Mira didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed just a little. "Let them ask," she said. "This time they'll come as equals, not as rulers." Above them in orbit, the Wraith fleet remained hidden. Their work was done. The silence had served its purpose. Now, the real work could begin. Meanwhile, Tessa drifted near the edge of Vexus Minor's debris field, low on fuel, low on sleep, but alive. Her pod's comms chirped with incoming messages, hundreds of them. Some were threats. Most were thanks. A Qatari trader offered her safe passage. A Lumen scholar asked for more data. A human colony invited her home. She didn't answer any of them yet. She just listened. Then a new signal came through, clean, strong, human. It wasn't a voice. Just text on her screen, you did well. Come home, she recognized the signature. It was from the same source that had guided her to the Wraiths. She typed back one word, why? The reply came instantly. Because the truth needs a voice. And you're still breathing. Tessa looked out at the stars. For so long, she had been a clerk, a nobody in a system that didn't care. Now she carried something more valuable than rank or power. Trust. She set a course for Sol. As she jumped into the void, the last council spire on Oryx Prime powered down. Not with a bang, not with a speech, but with a sigh. Lights dimmed. Doors locked. The great chamber sat empty, dust already gathering on the seats. The Galactic Council, after 300 years, was over. No one mourned it. In its place, something new stirred on dozens of worlds. Local leaders began talking, not to the old powers, but to each other. They shared resources. They traded ideas. They built networks that didn't need a central throne. And more they reached out to Earth not to demand. Not to accuse, but to ask. We wish to talk. And this time, humanity listened. Mira Voss stood on a balcony in Geneva, the morning sun warm on her face. Below, the city bustled, normal life unchanged by the storm and the stars. But she knew better. Everything had changed. A message arrived on her wristpad. It was from Tessa, now en route to Earth. What do I tell them? The message read, what do we say now? Mira typed back slowly. We say we're ready. Not to lead, not to rule. Just to stand beside them as partners, not subjects. She looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the Wraiths still watched. Not as weapons, not as ghosts, but as guardians of a promise that no one should have to kneel to be heard. In the weeks that followed, new signals bloomed across the galaxy, simple, open, honest. A Threlian colony shared water purification tech with a drought-stricken Qatari outpost. A Lumen archive opened its records to all. Human engineers helped rebuild a damaged relay station on the edge of Velnari space, without asking for anything in return. The old ways were gone. The new ones were messy, uncertain, full of mistakes. But they were real, and for the first time in centuries the galaxy felt free. Tessa landed on Earth not as a fugitive, but as a witness. She spoke to crowds not from a podium, but from a simple stage in a public square. She told the truth, not just about the Council's lies, but about Earth's choice to walk away, to wait, to let the rot burn out before planting new seeds. People listened, not because she was powerful, but because she was honest, and honesty, it turned out, was the rarest resource of all. Far above, on the bridge of the Evening Star, Commander Joran Hale watched Earth's surface through a view screen. Green fields, blue oceans, cities lit by night, no war, no panic, just life continuing. Kale stood beside him. What now? She asked. Joran smiled faintly. Now we stand down. The Wraiths go quiet again. But what if they need us? Then they'll call, he said. And this time they'll mean it. He gave the order. One by one, the black ships powered down their stealth fields, not to hide, but to rest. Their mission was complete. Humanity had not conquered the stars. They had not destroyed their enemies. They had simply refused to play a game rigged against them, and in doing so gave the galaxy a chance to build a better one. And in the quiet that followed, something new began to grow. Not in council chambers or war rooms, but in the spaces between, where trust is earned, not demanded, and where silence is not weakness, but wisdom. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly the point.